All right, so I'm going to close this out, and I'd made this very short slide presentation, but it's late on the second day, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But what I wanted to bring up in this is that I want to thank all of the speakers that over these last 2 days. I think they did a wonderful job in really starting this discussion. You know, the regulatory folks that got up there and, you know, realize that we've always got to focus on the fundamentals, the basics, and that is the the regulations. But the guide is now giving us that opportunity to move on with that flexibility. Then when we start talking, you know, with the end users and the different perspectives that we came in, and I think we all appreciated that in our little breakout session, that the diversity is critical in how we approach this. So I'm going to jump back here to a couple of the last ones that I made. So I did want to point out, I thought the talk that Dr. Mulder gave this morning was excellent. And I want to thank him for not only giving an excellent presentation, but also addressing a very, very important and very sensitive topic. You know, there are very strong feelings about how we should be housing our rodents. And, you know, that is a very important thing. And a lot of us are kind of nervous to approach that. But it's in organizations like that, putting it out there, putting the data out there that, you know, challenge the data. Don't challenge, you know, now we can start challenging the data on whether or not it's valid and move forward instead of just stand still. And I thank him for doing that. When we got into the breakout session, you know, the first thing, and Judy kind of mentioned that this is not a process that we need to take lightly, and we don't. And that's why we kind of chose, we were very careful on the topic that we chose for the breakout session. You know, the idea, we did discuss whether or not we should talk about cage density. But we can't do that in an hour and a half. There's no way we could come back together and have a valuable discussion on that. It takes time. As Dr. Mulder pointed out this morning, it's a long process getting there, and we don't take it lightly. What we noted is there were a lot of common themes that came out of approaching the process, regardless of the topic. Always keep animal welfare paramount. Always remember really why we're there and what we're doing. Use the regulations as your initial framework. You know, they are the engineering standards. The engineering standards are the minimum starting point. And I think Dr. Nelson made a good point in that use that to know what's there and what's not when you're trying to address these questions. We talked about the group diversity. It was so obvious. Every group mentioned that all the different perspectives make for a better product. And I think that's important as we move forward. Brainstorming. You know, again, obviously you've got a task, you've got a project to complete, but you need that initial brainstorming session to just put all those ideas out there. I had a colleague tell me, you know, I take that similar approach to when I'm writing. The best way to approach writing is you throw up and you clean it up later. Is you just put down every idea that comes to your mind, and then you go back and you put it together into a cohesive project, or product, excuse me. Remembering that it is not a one-size-fits-all. And although I firmly support the development of a repository, database, whatever we want to call it, but realizing that there are caveats with that. It is not one size fit all. You cannot take that and say, okay, this works for my institution. You've got to understand the culture of your institution, the personnel, the feelings that go into your operations when working on this. And that it is a learning opportunity. Dr. Vassbinder pointed out in her talk yesterday, you know, you start off this process with, you know, preconceived outcomes. Don't don't be frustrated when you get to the end and you didn't achieve those, or you need to change your outcomes. It is all a continuous learning process, and we need to realize that. And that's not a reason to stay stagnant. It's a reason to move forward. And that this is a living, breathing document. These will be that. It is always going to require constant monitoring and assessment. As new technologies come about, we can incorporate those. And that there needs to be a good balance between them. And that, I think, is the key. I'll just point out, I like Dr. Nemi's comment on being lean, green, and serene. We need to start thinking outside of the box on these. And then finally, where do we go from here? Well, we don't know right now. We don't know exactly the best way to go, but I think we need to start. We need to put it out there, and we need to try. Everybody that registered for the meeting should have actually received an email by now about completing a survey. That is incredibly important, that input, because that will help steer the direction that this takes. So I ask to please take the time and respond to that survey. I see it as our clearinghouse or this database as kind of where we put park skeletal performance standards, or realizing that these performance standards are going to have to be tailored for your specific institution. And again, it's reaching that balance, realizing that as we go down this road, this is the mechanism that we can use to move forward better ways of doing things, other than waiting for the next revision to the guide, or help to move the guide toward that living, breathing document. And then we may find out that our performance standards will tweak our engineering standards, or vice versa, and that it is a balance between them. So with that, I will end. Dr. Anderson is going to close us out. And again, I want to thank all the attendees as well as the committee, the planning committee, for this workshop. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Lynn Anderson, and along with Dr. Steve Nemi, we co-chaired the roundtable. And I would just like to thank David Kurtz and Pat Turner, who had to leave a few minutes ago, for leading this roundtable. It's been absolutely phenomenal. I want to thank all of the committee members. Could you all just stand so we can recognize you? Thank you. Been terrific. I also want to thank the speakers for their very informative, thoughtful, and thought-provoking presentations, and then finally to the roundtable members themselves, who with their contributions make it possible for us to put on workshops like these and to bring them to people all over the world. So with that, thank you again, and have a great evening.